management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice in demonstrating competency.
Announcements and special acknowledgements. School committee will participate in bean counting, the tri-board meeting on Saturday, April 5th at 9 a.m. at Town Hall Meeting Room A. Communications will meet remotely Wednesday, April 9th at 6:30. Policy will meet remotely Wednesday, April 16th at 6:30. And the next school committee meeting will be held Thursday, April 17th at 7 here in the Middle High School Ensemble Room. And we will hold another community discussion opportunity ahead of that meeting from 6:30 to 6:50. A special acknowledgement that Dr. Blake was nominated by our Fine Arts Director, Michael Coelho, for being an exemplary supporter of the arts in Ipswich. He was selected as one of the 2025 Massachusetts Music Educators Association School Administrator Awards recipients.
Thank you.
Excellent.
An easy group to support.
Yeah.
They're great. And actually, continuing on with special acknowledgements, I want to acknowledge all the students that participated in the All-State Band and Orchestra competition this past, or not competition, but program this past weekend, as well as the entire strings department and students for a very successful String Fest last week. Under the lights and the crowd, it was a packed house that evening. So it wasn't even standing room only. We had people out here on a monitor watching the concert. So it was fabulous. Plus all the people that were home live streaming it. So it was a great performance. So thank you and congratulations to all of them.
I have two as well. One, the last school committee meeting, I wasn't here because they were doing the music showcase at the Doyon School, which was amazing. Miss Plants, big shout out to the music teacher there. She did an awesome job. And then also shout out to Miss Lee, the art teacher at Winthrop, for their art show, which everybody loved. It's always a really fun night. So.
I'll piggyback on the music train. Last night was a small ensemble concert, so it was the chamber singers, the bel canto singers, and the chamber orchestra at the chapel at the Sisters of Notre Dame. Actually, it's not that way, it's that way. But anyways, I guess they haven't played in that venue before or in a very long time, but they were able to arrange it, and it was quite different than the PAC. It was much smaller and like a beautiful stained glass behind, and it was just, the acoustics were really good. And Mr. Coelho sent a really sweet email to all the chamber. I got it because my daughter's in chamber, but I'm sure Ms. Frost sent an email to all the chamber singers as well. But it's just a really nice, he just was very appreciative to be able to perform there, and it was a nice change for like a small venue concert. So.
Shout out to boys tennis who won their game yesterday. So.
Yay. Spring sports.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Public comment, I'm seeing none. I'm going to summarize our statement that it is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion. We do not typically respond. We allow 3 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes overall, and this is the only opportunity during this meeting for members of the public to comment. Dr. Blake, your superintendent's report, please.
Oh. Okay, so it's in your packets this evening. I'm not going to read it all. It was a relatively quiet 2 weeks, unlike the last couple of months. I spent a considerable amount of time reviewing and revising the FEFI's policy, and presented those updates for discussion at the FEFI's policy working group meeting on Tuesday. We had a great conversation, and I have more revisions to continue making on that, and some research that I needed to do regarding the FEFIs themselves. So there'll be more to come on that. We're going to try to, I'm hoping to wrap that policy up this year instead of waiting for it to finish up next year. I met with the CREST Collaborative Board to review the amendments to the bylaws that they're suggesting, and we voted to bring them to our respective school committees for a final vote. That's later on in the agenda this evening for your review. I met with the town planner, Jared Contrada, to talk about our Safe Routes to School program, our membership in that program, and a study that they are looking to do that would encompass a half mile around the middle and high school. And he also joined our leadership team meeting this week to meet with the principals and talk about that project and what that might look like, and to try to get some parent involvement as well. Once that study is done, we hope to complete a study at the Winthrop once that initial project is done through Safe Routes to School. And by participating in this program, it enables us to apply for different grants, not only Safe Routes to School grants for things around the, the walkways, et cetera, but also the town as a whole. So it's important that we support these projects. Budget Subcommittee met, and we talked about a number of different scenarios for the override calculator, and when we might need future overrides for the strategic, in terms of the strategic planning group. We also discussed some changes to the FY26 proposed budget. North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable meeting last Friday was our annual meeting with our legislators. We had decided to present them with some questions ahead of time and ask them to respond during the meeting. The questions centered around state and federal funding, current and potential legislation regarding reimbursement for transportation and special education, and the rising health care costs. That piece in particular jumped out at me because there are districts that had increases of over 25%. And as you know, we had originally budgeted 15, and we had to go back and add another 5% to that because ours came in at 20%. I can't imagine districts that were seeing a 25% increase in their health insurance. So that's something that's across the Commonwealth, and so we're all going to need to be addressing that moving forward. We had agenda planning earlier in the week. Had a meeting with some parents regarding student behaviors. The DEI team also met this week. And then we did have a resignation. Brad Orm, our facilities director, has given his notice. I spent time with the administrators earlier in the week reviewing the building concerns and looking at how the principals can directly oversee more of what the custodians are doing moving forward. Tom and I also spent time with Brad yesterday, I think it was, in one of several scheduled meetings to make sure that we have a complete understanding of all the current and near future projects that are happening, and all the work orders in the system so that we can collectively keep things moving. We're updating the job description and hope to be posting that by tomorrow. So, and then finally, our leadership team meeting this week focused on the end-of-year budgeting expectations, end-of-year events, and the Youth at Risk Conference that's coming up in May that a lot of our staff members would like to attend, so we kind of have to set some parameters on that because there's so many people that wanted to go. I think we're going to end up sending like 4 or 5 people from each building to that conference. In terms of end-of-year events, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we're beyond the snow, but I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not jinxing myself. But the way it looks as of right this minute, the last day of school is on that Monday, June
16th.
June 16th. And the other hot button question is always, when is Crane Beach Day? So we're looking at June 12th for Crane Beach Day, although that hasn't been confirmed yet with the with the trustees. But that's how it's looking. So June 12th and then 13th would be the rain date. So as long as we can secure those, that's what will happen. And then there's the whole list of senior events and other events at the middle and elementary schools that'll be forthcoming.
Thank you.
Is Brad staying till the end of the school year or not?
Give 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Hence the sense of urgency to get.
Right.
We're actually working on looking to see if we can get somebody in temporarily to help support.
Okay.
I have 2 questions, but they're both related to things that I think probably will come up when subcommittees do their readouts, so should I just wait
Oh, ask away.
until? Okay. For Feffy's policy stuff, is there anything there that could be, I understand there's going to be a process to get things officially voted in, but is there anything that we could lean on in terms of the upcoming decisions that that group is going to be making?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think so. I mean, if you have specific questions or issues, but we're not going to have the policy approved and voted on until the very end of the school year probably, which would be too late.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any, nothing jumps out at me as,
Okay, there were a couple specific things that came out of the last meeting, so why don't I send you an email with those specific questions, and then we can
Okay.
tackle them if there is anything, just guidance or something that could be.
we have to set up our
Sure.
next meeting tonight.
That, maybe after our next subcommittee, share the direction that the policy is headed, because I think there are going to be I anticipate will be some significant shifts.
Okay. Yeah, anything that could, even if it's just broadly directionally, like moving in that direction, not official, I think would be helpful. And I'm happy to follow up with like the specifics, but yeah. Okay.
Like if, in the meantime, if that group's having like specific questions, like I know last year there were some unprecedented things, like does that group go back and ask the applicants to change their ask? Like that hadn't happened before. I don't know if that's gonna happen this year, but like if there's anything specific, I suppose it could come here and we could, kind of vote as a one-off or something if we needed, like, action.
If the timing allows, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually an email came in today, maybe on the official date of the next meeting, but I didn't look at it. I just saw that it came in. So I don't know how it would coincide with when we're meeting, but we can at least have an email exchange in the meeting.
Email from
Peter,
Peter?
with the date, I think,
It was,
right?
it was the,
14th, I think. Was it 14th?
I think he was trying to narrow it down because he hadn't heard from everybody.
Oh, okay,
I think that was the email,
Okay.
was just a reminder, hey, if you haven't let us know, please do.
got it, okay.
And I was one of them.
Okay, and then my
I
other
mean,
question.
sorry, just one other thing on Feffy's. I'm hopeful that because there was no turnover in the committee from last year to this year, and the chair, Peter Janolfi, had a sort of pre-meeting to review roles and the policy and all that. I'm hoping that it will be a smoother process than last year.
In that meeting, I think a lot of questions still came out of that.
Okay.
And I had shared some of the notes, or the minutes.
I think I have access to them, yeah.
But there's a lot there, so I can pull out the couple
Okay.
that seem to be,
Okay.
they're bulleted notes, right? Like I can pull out the ones that there were more robust conversations around that we might want to highlight.
Okay.
My other question was, budget subcommittee changes to the FY '26.
I think we're talking about that during the finance
Okay.
update,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
I figured it might be coming up later, but that's why I didn't know if I should hold it until.
You want to hear about that?
Yeah, I just wondered what that might. Yeah, come on, guys.
All right, great. Any other questions for Dr. Blake? Okay, moving on to subcommittee working group reports. Does budget I know Sasha's not here. Does anybody want to present on budget? Is it all going to be covered by Tom? I guess we hadn't heard about the override. Like, you summarized the override. I don't know if there's anything to add there about what was shared with strategic planning.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we met I'm having trouble remembering. Yeah, we met last week, budget, to review the override inputs for the strategic planning committee. As Dr. Blake mentioned, we had some good discussion around it, and Tom was really helpful in sort of walking through some scenarios. So we ended up providing the strategic planning committee with updated numbers of a $2.9 million override ask in spring 2027 and a $3.5 million override in spring 2032. So we provided those numbers. There was a little back and forth about when that would hit the tax rolls for the modeling situation, but other than that, you know, we just had some sort of long-term financial planning discussions, and I think those are, you know, we did what we needed to do for that meeting, which was to get the information to the strategic planning committee, but I think there's some more meetings that need to be had to sort of iron out our long-term plan.
So you guys are going to continue meeting to keep that conversation
I think
moving?
we didn't set anything else up that I recall, but I think we should meet again. Yeah. Yeah. So Sasha's chair of budget, so we will follow up with him. I will leave myself a note, not only to schedule FEFIs, but for Sasha to schedule budget.
Great, thank you. Thank you for getting that done and presented to the strategic planning committee.
Yeah.
Is the idea too that, so we've got an override in 27 and 32, that presumably what we're trying to do is space out, like when the vote for the school would be 29-ish.
Yep.
All right. For communications, we haven't met. However, Haley and I just did the first community discussion before the meeting. We had one person come, and it was a lovely discussion about wellness and nutrition in the schools and stuff. So I had some more feedback to Dr. Blake about it. But it was nice. It was great. Well, like I said, we'll do another one at our next meeting. I think, do you have anything to add about FEFIs? I think we covered that.
I just have a couple other things on strategic planning
Oh,
that
yeah,
I
you
forgot
have
to
that.
mention, because I was kind of talking about budget. But, so strategic planning committee met actually before budget, but, so strategic planning is planning to present at Bean Counting this Saturday. I think they would have a 30-minute time slot, so they will present their sort of the most recent model with the updated numbers on Saturday, and there's a sort of a draft presentation going around among the, there is a draft presentation that's been circulated, so once it's sort of finalized, I'll try to get that to you before the meeting on Saturday. And then we are working to finalize the report to get into the Finance Committee booklet for town meeting. We're sort of back and forth about what we want to include on that, but we will get an update on Saturday.
Great.
So that's strategic planning. So for FEFIs, yeah, I mean, I think we made it probably more than halfway through the policy. So I think we felt like we needed one more meeting to sort of get through it as a subgroup. And then we could either bring it back to the full school committee meeting or schedule a workshop. I know we had talked about maybe just trying to crank it out in 2 or 3 hours, everybody together. So I think we'll have a better sense of that of our next meeting. I'd like to schedule our next meeting tonight before we leave if we can, 'cause that's not currently scheduled. Spring schedules might be tough for a workshop, but we can see. What else? Yeah, just like you mentioned, Dr. Blake, the research that you're going to do on sort of getting some information on fall twig grants versus spring twig grants, and how, you know, is more money or more grants applied for in any certain cycle and some information on the recurring grant requests that we tend to get every year, like the Kinder Swim and the college boot camp and the place-based learning and those kinds of, just so we can get some sort of history of those, how much they've been and for how long those grants have been in place, to give us some more information to work with. And then you're also working with the administrators to have a discussion about overnight field trips, and might bring a proposal to this group about, I know for a couple of years, we've been talking about, instead of just sort of getting these overnight field trip requests, should we have sort of a discussion around what works for our district, and should we have some sort of schedule? Yeah. So that we can plan for them and sort of what's a reasonable number or frequency, making sure it's like the field trips are diverse in terms of, accessible to all kids and et cetera. So more to come on that.
Do you want to, since you've got the floor here, do you want to hit climate resiliency? Do you have an
Sure.
update there?
So, yeah, so the update from climate resiliency is the new NORESCO project, which is like a slimmed down version of the last one that was on Fall Town Meeting. So the new NORESCO project will be on Springtown Meeting, and that is, so had the solar carport removed and the elementary LED lighting removed. So that was approved by the select board at their last meeting. And so we're trying to, the ask is that the board sort of socialize it as it's not the exact same thing that was on the fall town meeting. So it's the new NORESCO project. Select board decided to have it be funded with bond funding within our levy limit, which means no debt exclusion and no resulting property tax impact. So if it does get approved at town meeting, the select board does want to have it on the ballot, so voters get a say in addition to town meeting. We have been asked by the Climate Resiliency Group to help with some outreach. So they've asked that we put something in our school committee newsletter about NORESCO. Just that it's going to be on at town meeting and on the ballot, and maybe how it would impact the schools. So I think you know about that, and you're on comms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not until the end of April. They've also asked, I don't know if this can happen now, but maybe an interview or video with the school facilities director on the state of the buildings. And they've also asked if it's possible, the select board is working on a letter for the local news about the NORESCO project. So they've asked if we would consider a letter to the local news.
Oh,
That was just today. I got an email about that.
Tell me more about the interview with the facilities director in terms of the state of the buildings, just.
Well, I think it would probably be the way that the NORESCO project would impact our buildings. I'm imagining something along the lines of like, these are projects we need to do anyways, so maybe walking through some of the examples of like, for example, the weatherization stuff at the high school and how that might help with XYZ, or I don't think we need to, LED lighting's pretty self-explanatory, but trying to think of some other things that are on NORESCO that would benefit our buildings. I mean, we stripped out the elementary stuff, so I guess it would really be, so maybe there's like someone at the middle school, high school that could do a short video
I can make that happen.
that could be posted. I don't know who would record it, or I can put you in touch with someone on climate resiliency who's trying to work on a communications
Okay, yeah,
plan.
yeah, you would.
is the wording for the NORESCO project been solidified yet? The wording that's going to be and also for on the ballot, because obviously that was.
I don't think it's been they're working on it,
Yeah.
but it will be different than what was in the fall, I believe. It
That's
will
what we
have
should
the,
include with.
yeah, it will have the phrase NORESCO in it, and it didn't
Oh, on
in the fall.
ballot it will?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that's huge.
pretty
That's a
sure
big
that's what,
difference. No, I
Yeah.
think they're voting on the ballot. The select board is next
this
week, I
Monday
believe.
maybe, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But-
NORESCO's in there. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
It seems, I mean, I think they're really working hard to make it, it should be actually in the bottom of the warrant. The tentative ballot questions should be at the end of the warrant that we discuss later.
For the letter, if we decide we want to do a letter, who's going to write the letter?
I don't know. Anyone who volunteers or communications?
Or the climate resiliency
No, or the
liaison?
climate resiliency liaison?
I feel like you're most
Touche,
versed in
fine.
it.
I can do it. If we, I mean, I could, it would be from the school committee though, so I would need to,
Well, I don't know what the timing is, but I mean, if we decide to do it and if you agree to write it, if you had it ready before the 17th, then we could all.
yeah, I'm just not going to be here, so
Yeah,
I'll
oh,
miss
right.
that meeting, but
Yeah, if
You
you have
could
your draft and then we can.
rip it apart when I'm not here. That's fine.
go
Yeah, I could do
apart,
that.
but, you know, just once over. I don't think it would need to be very
No,
detailed, just, you know.
yeah, and it can't be,
Mandatory.
you know, vote yes
Right.
on Noresco. It's, you know, this is what the project is, this is how it would benefit our buildings. Like, it'd be factual,
Right.
I think, from the school committee or the school perspective.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's reasonable for you to have something by the 17th?
Yeah,
Okay, does anybody, are we all in agreement that we're okay with the letter? Yeah.
and so I'll plan to put it in the meeting packet. I mean, I'll try to get it done before that, so you, if people wanted to give me individual feedback, so that I can at least put a letter that has been looked at by people
Okay.
in the folder.
And you know what, actually, when does communications meets the 9th? It's probably, I don't know how quick you're gonna write it. If you have it ready by the 9th, we could look at it then, but if not, we can look at it the 17th.
Yeah, 9th might be tough,
Yeah,
because I'm away this weekend, but
okay,
we'll see.
okay. Other, I think you're done with all of your roles, yes?
I
Okay.
am.
Elementary group, have you guys done that, or is there any update on the FAQ?
We have not met. The intention is there's two main documents. One is sort of what we talked about, talking points, but kind of key messages for us, things we're focused on. And then the second is the timeline, which is just coming from the MSBA, but thought it'd be helpful for us to readily publish. Their site, for someone who spends a lot of time there, is still difficult to navigate. We have not met to finalize those, but that's our intention. Again, just like, we don't start anything till July. We're just trying to be a little extra helpful for anyone that's paying attention and proactive in some of this. So we'll meet, we'll bring that to the next meeting.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything from IEF, Payne, Twig, other?
I'll just say, for Twig, the grants are due by April 11th, which is next Friday, and that the Twig committee meets to review them on May 6th.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on, high school student representative report.
Well, Bridge starts on Monday, so a lot of seniors are excited about that. I think it's north of 48 kids, about half the class, and so kids excited about that. For the seniors who are staying, from what I've been told, it's 26 days left in the school year, so that's exciting for the seniors. Graduation's on June 1st. We're looking forward to that, and that's about it. In other news, Malta UN is going on their trip tomorrow into Boston, so we're leaving here at 10:45. We will be arriving in Boston at, 12, I think was what we scheduled. We're going to drop our bags off at the hotel, then go to Faneuil Hall, do a historic walk through Boston, and then we have committees from Friday night, all day Saturday, and then half the day Sunday. So that's we have a big group of kids going, so that should be really fun. That's about it. That's all I can think of. Not much else has happened in the past 2 weeks that I've heard about.
Great, good stuff. All right, finance report.
So a couple things tonight, the monthly budget report. both the general fund budget is in your folder. We continue to perform as anticipated. We have now entered the fourth quarter, but with, April 1st coming about. So we are on spending plan. So the general fund is in good shape. We met with the administrators, as Dr. Blake referred to earlier, on Tuesday of this week to talk about, end-of-year matters. And then we had the business office and administrative assistants monthly meeting this morning and get everyone sort of situated on how we're closing fiscal year '25. It's our intention to cease spending for fiscal year '25 on April the 30th, to be able to allow an appreciation for what some of our end-of-year balances will ultimately be. We have obviously put aside all required spending, salaries and benefits, utilities, and set aside the $850,000 contribution to the stabilization fund. But then we will, then we're going to need to provide, offsets as we do at the end of the year when May and June, come about. So we're in good stead, though. The fiscal '25 general fund is performing as anticipated. The other report in there, meaning the monthly report, is the stabilization and revolving fund balances for month ending March 31st. There is nothing particularly interesting in the month of March that had occurred there. We're still showing, healthy balances, and we'll begin to offset both into those funds come May and June. So at that point is when we'll start seeing some changes in balances. So might there be any questions or concerns about the monthly reports? Okay. Moving on, fiscal '26. We had part of the discussion that we had at the Budget Subcommittee when we met a week and a half ago, in addition to the adjustments to the override, the calculator, and providing information back to strategic planning, I had shared with the committee a memo that Dr. Blake and I had received from the town manager's office. I put a copy of that memo in your folder. Everything under 8A has to do with what is coming with regard to an adjustment that is needed in the fiscal '26 budget. There is some good news here. The town, in their final sort of reconciliation around calculations for fiscal '26, made an additional some additional adjustments there, and we have been, as a result of those adjustments, we have received an additional $121,735 for the town contribution to the school district's fiscal '26 budget. So we had obviously presented that to the Budget Subcommittee and had a discussion around what that may look like. Sort of, working backwards. What needs to happen, frankly, this evening is we need to take a vote. Meaning you folks need to take a vote on a new budget number that would be $121,000 higher than the vote that you took a month ago now. That's sort of working backwards in this process. If I could call your attention to item 8A, FY '26 summary proposal. Certainly I will do what the committee's requests, but I would like not to produce another book. Just saying. So what is here on page 8A as the summary is what the administration is presenting to you tonight and was presented to the Budget Subcommittee a week ago for a new amount for fiscal '26. that is representing an increase of the $121,000. So this would represent a total budget for fiscal '26 of $41,070,794, which would be an increase of 3.07% over fiscal '25. So, and the change is in the town contribution number. The town contribution number will go up by the $121,000. It's our recommendation, and I believe that discussed with Budget Subcommittee, that we not change the request or the draw from the stabilization fund, keeping that, I think, firm and static, is some consistency there. So by adding the additional resources from the town, the budget will go up by $121,000, which would necessitate a new vote from the school committee. It's our recommendation on what to do with that. We discussed that at the meeting as well, because for town meeting purposes, it doesn't need to be represented in that way. It needs to be represented as a bottom line, but I think it's entirely fair for people to ask that question. So the recommendation that we're making for the time being is to add that to the salary, our reserve line, and use that as the year opens up and as needed. That could be an additional resource to support, a stabilization in going into fiscal '27. We had talked about a couple of places to be able to have some funding for the stabilization draw coming out of '26. Certainly, we talked about the Chapter 70. If we get an additional fund there, well, this $121,000 could also be a source of resources into fiscal '27. So I think if we put it into a reserve line, we have the luxury, if you will, or the ability moving forward throughout the year to apply it as the year unfolds. So that's the other thing that you have on 8A. It's called budget motion. Is recommended language for a motion should the committee be so inclined to accept the town's additional $121,000.
I have a question on the spreadsheet.
Sure.
Stop that. But just a date issue. It says in the green rectangular at the bottom, it says, voted by the school committee on April 4th. Should that be today?
That is today.
Is today the 4th or the 3rd?
Oh,
Third, okay.
no, you're right.
Okay.
My bad. That was-
No, that's, I was like, oh my
absolute
gosh.
mistake.
Gotta make another book.
Okay. So if that matters, just figured I'd point that out.
No, that's great. No, I think just typing too quickly, that's all, but thank you.
Right.
Yep.
I don't want that to void anything,
Yeah, and there too. It's just,
And I'll just say at Budget Subcommittee, we talked about what that money could be used for. I mean, we could, like Tom said, draw less from the stabilization, or we could use it, and maybe we would use less offsets at the end of the year. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could play out, but putting it in the salary reserve line seems like a safe place to keep it, and then we can use it and then not spend other money as the year moves on. But
Since we've gotten to a budget that we have voted on, I'd recommend don't change the budget. This 120,000 means we could take 120,000 less from the override, the stabilization fund. So we would just leave the budget as it is. We don't need to revote on that. And we would just draw less from the override fund, the stabilization fund. So that would come down from like 1.7 to 1.6 million. We can do it that way instead.
so that is an option.
Yeah.
Which is certainly the committee's discretion. That's not what the administration is recommending.
Yeah,
That
yes,
is an option.
totally
Okay.
understand.
Yep,
I'm
okay.
proposing that as an alternative, recommending that as an alternative.
Why, so you have two different paths here. Why did you present the path to not do what Sasha suggested?
Because it allows us the liberty throughout the course of the year to use those additional resources resources if, at the committee's discretion. If there's something that comes up, whether it's additional, if there's additional, programmatic needs, or a facilities need, or if, for example, there is a particular, maybe a special education need or requirement. I think the town is prepared to provide these additional resources, and I think that it's in our best interest to increase our bottom line, budget allocation from the town contribution as they see fit. I think if we don't apply that, it doesn't change the bottom line of the budget. It doesn't really increase the budget. It keeps the budget as the current vote is. By taking in the additional resources that the town is allowing us to have, brings up some of the conversations that this committee and the community has had in recent months and weeks, and allows some discretion as the budget unfolds. And allows us to have two now decent sources of funds toward the stabilization need, or as we close fiscal '26. Like a year from now, we're going to be talking about what that number's going to be. In the plan, it's $650,000. And some of that was to come, from potential if there's additional Chapter 70 resources, or certainly, even these funds.
So I want to correct a couple things. Either way, we receive that additional 120 from the town.
We do.
So no matter what, we receive it.
But it doesn't increase our capacity to spend.
Right.
Yeah.
The give back is 750 plus whatever we receive from Chapter 70.
Right.
This would lower the amount we take from stabilization.
But it locks us into
Or
using it.
Or it could increase the amount in stabilization moving forward, which is also part of the larger conversation that we're having about how we're going to be able to effectively stretch the stabilization fund as we try to meet certain targets now in the ask in
that's my
27 and the ask in 32. Be nice to have a larger balance in stabilization.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Take 120,000 less out of the stabilization so we have it for the long term. As opposed to putting this into funding for next year that we may return at the end, just immediately keep it in the stable, don't even take it out of the stabilization.
Yeah, because if this hadn't happened, and like all those situations you bring up, I mean, of course, it's always nice to have a place to turn, but we weren't counting on that. So I kind of think it's hard, but to kind of discipline ourselves to remain on course with the original plan and protect our long-term plan.
So Tom is always, or not, I mean, you haven't been here that long, but we have been very disciplined about giving back to stabilization what we mapped out in our budget calculator. So, this year there is 850 ready to go back. So I think we have been pretty disciplined. It seems like it would give us more flexibility to accept it into our budget. But I mean, just seems like it would give us a little more flexibility. And I have one question for Tom is, do you think the town, if we did it the other way by withdrawing less from stabilization, do you think the town would have any, do you think the town expects us to accept it and up our budget bottom line?
I think the town expects us to increase the budget,
I just wonder if there's any,
but I don't think they
I mean,
have
if
a
they
preference.
have not found extra money for us, but if they've redone their calculations and there's extra money for us, is it on us to accept that and say thank you very much? Add it to our budget, even though
We're
I
accepting
don't
it
think we
either way.
plan,
No matter what scenario we choose, and there are multiple, more than just
Okay.
the two we're talking about. Either way, we're accepting the 120,000 and change. It's more than that.
What
But
it
either way,
does
we're
is
accepting.
it may or may not increase the
The budget,
ask for
okay.
spending next year. If
Right.
we reduce the draw from the stabilization fund from 1.7 million, less the 121,000,
right?
that doesn't change the ask in terms of what the budget request is.
Right.
It'll just be, the 121 will come in as additional resource from the town contribution, not from the stabilization. We have consistently been talking about for months the 1.7 million. So I think there's a consistency there that has flowed through all of the override calculations. That has been a constant, at least. Now, that's not to say that the planning, of course, can't change, but that has been a constant in this work. So the scenarios that we have are relying on, are anticipating the 1.7 withdrawal.
Right.
We're not unaware of some of the challenges in fiscal '26, and it would be a little bit of a comfort to have some additional capacity there.
I would rather have the capacity there in the budget during the fiscal year and then be able to return it at the end if it's unused.
There should already be a $750,000 buffer that's planned to be returned. This would be on top of that. I understand the intention, I just feel like we've got plenty of buffer in there already. Let's take less out of the stabilization. Don't change we receive the money from the town, we don't change our budget, we just take less from stabilization.
So is one of the, I'm trying to wrap my head around these options, is the money that the additional money we're now getting from the town, can that be used, maybe this is what one of the suggestions is, to be deducted from next year's budget? Like, it's just a matter of where that's being held, and then that amount will be used towards 27? Is that right? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean,
And it's just different ways of doing that?
That is part of the recommendation of keep an extra 120,000 in the stabilization fund so we can have it for next year or the year after. That's in general the intention, is that
That's what you're
we'd have
suggesting?
more there, yeah. There's a
Okay.
little, the accounting mechanics of, we can't like put that money aside. It would be that we would take less out of stabilization, which would mean you'd have more for a future year.
Gotcha.
Same kind of idea, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How did you guys determine the salary reserve as the place where that would go? I don't know. Like, are there other places that were considered, or?
No, not really. It is a commonly used placeholder that would not artificially inflate some other line, because it's a reserve line, so it's intended to have a placeholder amount often put on it for needs as the year goes along.
But that means it's specific to staffing needs? Like, if it would pay, is it literally for someone's salary?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no.
We just-
No. But sometimes salary needs occur throughout the course of the year as needs change. People leave, people retire, we may need to hire special educators. There's a lot of moving parts there, but it wouldn't be exclusive to salaries. That would just be a commonly known place to place the funds.
Question?
I'm just going back and forth because we didn't talk at length at the budget subcommittee about option B. One thing that did come up is, I made the point that, we have a few positions going up before the paying grant committee that might not pass, and that this $121,000 might be an option for like a health teacher that might not get funded through the paying grant. But the good news is we're getting more money from the town. The bad news is we've been through about 5 different fire drills about not getting this amount. So here we are. So do we, I'm kind of torn because I like the idea that we have a budget. We worked hard and went through, and especially Tom and Dr. Blake, the fire drills to get here, and maybe just stay with that and give back more to stabilization, because that feels like we were given our allotment, and we did it. And we didn't like all of it. And maybe stay with that number, like Sasha's suggesting.
That's what I,
But I want to just make the acknowledgement that at the budget subcommittee, one thing I brought up was, if we don't get a health teacher out of the pain grant, maybe this is an option.
But we have also had a lot of long-term planning discussions, and I think we're all very cognizant that, and we've seen the news in all the other towns, budgets are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So, we do, if we do accept this money into our budget, I don't necessarily think we should spend it. Unless we really, really need it and something unexpected comes up, because I do think we need to be saving as much as we can for future years.
And I think that's what I'm
yeah.
sitting with, I'm thinking, Amesbury's cutting $8 million from their budget, and lots of teachers. And,
Yeah, there's a lot of overrides on the spring
yeah,
town meetings around here.
I'm thinking maybe giving back to stabilization more might be a good idea for our future.
Anybody like to make a motion?
If we don't change our budget, we don't need to make a motion. We would only need to make a motion if we make a change to our budget to increase it by $120,000. If we don't make a motion, it stays as is.
Okay.
Sure.
No, because we
'Cause we
have
need
to
to
ask
accept
the
the
town
money.
meeting to withdraw from stabilization. So we have to have the two
The
numbers.
stabilization does, okay, sorry, I misunderstood the, yeah.
Right, so
If you look at the draft
Yep.
motion, just sort of, we can do the math in real terms, but we need to have those two figures. The town contribution.
Yep.
And then the stabilization number.
Yep,
Both
so
of those numbers need to be brought forward to town meeting. And then obviously
Yeah, if you want to give me a second, I can do it fast unless someone's already done it.
So you're saying the town contribution wouldn't change, the stabilization draw would be $121,735 lower?
the 1,600,455.
Yep. And, okay, and do we need to, the full motion needs to include both the budget and the,
Yes, the town contrib, so
Yep.
if you're inclined to use that language, just swap the numbers
Yep.
around. Yep.
all right. I move that the school committee, hold on, we got to rephrase this a little bit.
Well, do you still need, okay. no.
as you're working that, I know this is not your preferred option. Is this doable?
Sure.
Okay.
What happens to it, like if it gets put into that salary reserve and then we don't use it for some reason, where does it go at the end of the year?
Goes to the
Stabilization, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It all does come out in the wash, like Sasha said, there is technically the money we would have been giving back anyways if the worst thing ever happened. We would have that and would be putting less back next year. Like, we hope to not do that, but there is still
the worst thing ever happened, we may not have that $750,000 to give back.
Right.
That's in the budget.
That's our plan, that's our plan. It's not like it's sitting in a budget line somewhere. I mean, it's money that's figured out over the course of the year.
So, but we're talking about having 750 versus 870, right? So, okay.
Other than the 750, are there other places? I mean, that's like the full cushion as it exists in any number of line items in terms of, whatever. We've got the huge leak at the Doyon in the classroom that's out of commission there, or, as you said, a special ed or staffing need, those kinds of things. Like, that's the full boat to cover, right?
Well, and I guess just in full disclosure, not that it's, untransparent ever, that we do not have a place in the fiscal '26 budget where we have already set aside $750,000. Right, that's part of the plan. As the year unfolds, we're going to see what, as in this year, with the goal being setting aside $850,000, right? By this time of the year, right, we have that as a plan, but there isn't for fiscal '26 a place where we're already seeing abundances or surpluses to actually set that aside. And if there is some thing that happens throughout the course of fiscal '26 that requires the money, obviously we would immediately report that to you. But there's no guarantee that we can have $750,000. That's the plan. If there's some dramatic need, we would have to make the decision around what are we doing? Are we paying for that dramatic need, or are we adhering to the stabilization override plan? I'm not trying to be, negative on that. I just didn't want you to think that there's a place in the fiscal '26 budget where there's $750,000 set aside to do nothing with.
Got it.
Just wanted to be transparent on that.
Any other question? Okay. I move the school committee vote to approve the FY '26 school budget of $40,949,059 and withdraw from the Education Stabilization Fund $1,600,455.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. That math all.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I didn't do the math.
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Abstained? Okay. So 5, 4, 1 abstention, passes. All right, and that, sorry, follow up there, that will be, that needs to go in the town warrant. So,
I've been emailing with the town manager, so I'll get this done in the morning.
okay, all right,
He's expecting this report tomorrow morning on what you folks did.
okay, all right, great, thank you. Lastly, Tom, you had wanted to give an update on the Pain and Twig process. Were you wanting to do that in this meeting?
I
or-
do not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But I do, but
Another time? Okay.
Just before we leave this, can we go back to the revolving accounts for just a second? In the education stabilization for March, it shows $0.
well, that must be it.
I think it's just a typo, I just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah. no,
I hope so.
that happened. But yes, that's a typo. The balances are the same as the prior,
Okay, that's what I see.
yeah. I probably hit delete instead of tab.
Yeah, there is.
Something like
School
that.
stabilization, yeah, it should be 3.6.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the same as the prior month.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was
No,
just
it's a great pickup. Sorry, thank you. I'll fix that in the morning and put a new report in the folder.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, Dr. Blake, can you walk us through the CREST Articles of Agreement?
Yes, so in your packets this evening is a letter from the director of Crest, Robert Jacola. He outlines the proposed changes. Essentially, we're updating the bylaws. I think the big takeaway in all of it is that it removes the cap for non-member districts, that the collaborative can charge non-member districts for tuition. We also bring the language into agreement with, and alignment with what DESI recommends and what their requirements are. The last time it was updated was 2015. So essentially the board met, the board is made up of superintendent members, and we've met on a couple of different occasions now to review the changes, discuss the changes. Crest worked directly with DESI to make sure that all the changes were what they needed to be. And so we voted last week to bring those changes to our respective school committees. And it's a simple, we can discuss it, but it's a simple yes or no. It's not a situation where it's open for us to make additional changes to it. So with that, I will try to answer any questions that folks have. I tried to get that in early so folks would have a chance to review it before the meeting.
I do have a question. Trying to, as I was reading it, trying to figure it out. And when it says the non-member districts, such as, like, what districts?
So there's, anybody in the Commonwealth can essentially, apply to send their students there, but there's a list of member districts. And then any districts that don't belong would be charged that premium.
So they can still do it, but they would have, I know,
Yep.
So it could be more than 20% above?
Yes.
Okay, so they're removing that cap, okay.
Yep, yep. And some districts belong to one consortium and not another. Others belong to two, like Ipswich belongs to both Crest and North Shore Education Collaborative. Because of where we're located geographically, it makes sense for us to have access to both of those. And by being members, we get a reduced rate on our tuitions, et cetera. There are other districts that don't belong at all to a collaborative, and then they pay a premium.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? All right.
What's your personal thought, recommendation?
Absolutely, yes.
I will read this here. 'Cause
Matter of fact, I think I made the motion at the meeting to approve it, so.
All right, so is there a motion to support that Ipswich Public School Committee hereby approves the amendments to Crest's Articles of Agreement as approved by Crest Board of Directors on March 12th and 26th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Jenny, second by Jen. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, and it passes.
Thank you.
Next up, real quick, the superintendent evaluation process and timeline. It's that time of year. So, last year we were on this timeline as well, where we tried to have everything in like mid-May. So I was looking at the dates, and I was thinking it would be nice if we could present the summative evaluation on our May 15th meeting. So that would mean everybody would have to have their evals to me by like May 5th. And, yeah, May 5th. And let me take a step back here, because everybody but Haley's been through this before. It's a little bit of a clunky process, I will say, the evaluation tools. I dropped in our folder, it was in September of '23, I believe. We had a MASC workshop that they presented on this, so I put the copy of that presentation in there and the form that we use. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards too, Haley, again, since you haven't
What,
been through it.
what the form that's in here is blank. The form that you folks will actually get will be pre-populated with my goals in it as they match up, so that it makes it a little bit less wonky
Yeah,
for
thank you. Yeah, so any questions on the process, and how do we feel about the timeline?
So when would we get the forms, like how long would we have between when we got the forms from Laura, you think, and like a couple weeks at least?
them by May. You want them by
I want
Monday?
everybody to have
You
them
want
to me by the 5th.
by the 5th? So how long do folks want to do them? I can get them out before vacation. That'll give me
Yeah,
2 weeks.
like by the 18th, that would give us 2 full weeks and 3 weekends.
Yeah.
Fair,
Everybody gets
absolutely.
2 weeks. All right. Fantastic.
I mean, I remember this when I was chair, you want it to be as late in the year as you can, because then you have more, we're evaluating on goals you're doing during the school year, so you want it to be as close to the end of the school year as possible, but then
Yeah.
you run into.
I think last year we were up against a couple of members not returning, so we wanted to have
Right.
everything wrapped up
Well, that's
before
true.
the board changes, and I'm not sure where things
Yeah,
stand
yeah.
this year, but it shouldn't,
Right.
shouldn't matter.
When is that
timeline-wise.
election? When is this?
May 14th-ish,
That's right.
13th, May 13th. Sorry? No, that's town meeting.
13th.
So the election's the
Election is
20th. Not town meeting.
Still have it wrapped up before then.
So we want to be able to like approve it or whatever prior to the 20th. I mean, sure.
That's why we did it
Yeah.
a little
Okay,
on the
so
early
that's
side
good.
in the past.
And that's fine.
Sounds good.
But I remember last year also, I think, or maybe it was the year before, I had it done by the time the board members left, even though we didn't actually read it into the record until those members had left, so that was a little bit.
I know when I started, Sasha and Matt started, I know I abstained from, I don't know if it was our first meeting but, you voted on the evaluation and I abstained from that.
Yeah.
So that was in '23.
Yeah, that's it, the timing's like,
Yeah, it's
Tricky.
awkward time.
yeah. Well, we'll continue on this course and then,
Yeah, no, it should work.
all right.
Can I ask an unrelated question? Since we're talking about town meeting, ahead of the last town meeting, we got that kind of whole let's meet ahead of time thing, and it kind of went sideways. Is that going to be happening again this year?
I have not heard, but that, maybe we could ask about that at Bean Counting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there also any clarification around us, where we're sitting and how that was
Another-
adjudicated?
Maybe we could talk about that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
About
I-
what?
That feedback was
Should
shared.
we be on the stage or not?
there were people sitting where we were in between us and.
Oh, yeah, I spoke to the town manager about that, so hopefully, but it can't hurt to bring it up at Bean Counting.
Since we're presenting so many fiscal budgets and stuff, it would be great for I just think the people who will be paying for these budgets to be able to look at us and be able to have us all be present on the stage so they can.
Well, we probably won't be on stage, because that's just, but, I mean, we can ask, but at the very least, like, a reserved front row, it shouldn't be too much to
Years
ask.
past, we were on the
room.
stage.
No, I know, I've
and-
tried,
And
but
select
that's,
board, and
yeah.
as elected officials, I think
Right.
the school committee should be on the stage with the other elected officials.
Just the select board's the only other.
I mean, most towns only have it, when I did the whole like article, guide for town meeting that I did, I met with Mass Moderators Association from a bunch of different towns. Most towns actually only have the town moderator up there with town council. Not even FinCom's up there, or a select board. They're just members at the meeting.
Right.
And sometimes when the select board's presenting or FinCom's presenting, they'll come up to do it. So how we do it, where we have two different committees on stage, is pretty unique. We're one of only 2 towns that does it that way, and nobody else has school committee up there.
So maybe it
Most
should be
have
all
it
or
where it's
nothing.
just town moderator and town
room.
council. I mean, we can do it because we have such a big stage, but most towns only have
Yeah.
those two people. Because everybody else is just technically a member. We're not actually anything else at a town meeting.
All right. Well, next up, policy update and approval. Everybody's had 2 meetings to look over these, so I'm gonna run through them and just wave me down if you want to stop and talk about one. All right, IKF. So there's a lot of Ipswich-specific language that we confirmed. We added the graduation competency determination that was presented by Dr. Blake and Dr. Wagner last month. All right, next up, IGA is getting turned into IGA/IGD, deleting the previous separate IGD. So those were merged, and we incorporated some feedback from Dr. Wagner. IGB, we incorporated some feedback from Dr. Oxford. IHAM, we added a sentence regarding health education class. IHAMA was also reviewed with Dr. Wagner with minor changes to reflect our practice. IHAMB, we added vaping because it's about other illicit things, so we added vaping to that policy. IHAMR, no changes, and then there were minor wording changes on the following: IHB, IHBA, IHBAA, and IHBEA. And IHBD, we are not recommending. I think it ended up in the folder, but we're not recommending to incorporate that one. Any questions about the policies?
I have a question about IHAM for health education. Just this addition for that health education should be taught as a separate academic discipline.
I can't hear you so well.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
A question about the IHAM health education policy, the addition that health education should be taught as a separate academic discipline. That it's different from how, obviously that's different from how it's taught now. Is it integrated now?
So the wording, I believe from MASC, this was part of their wording, was, I think, health education will be taught, and I think that's a reflection of the new standards, but given the transitional year we're in,
Yep.
we thought would be a more fitting word. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the policies as reviewed on April 3rd, 2025.
Second. Moved by Sasha, second by Jen. Further discussion? All in favor? All right, motion passes. Next up, we're going to hear from Jen on a proposal for an athletics working group.
All right, so a little history. When I was on, or became a school committee member, one of my first subcommittees was the athletic subcommittee. I wish Jenny was here. So we right now do not have an athletics subcommittee as a school committee subcommittee. And when I was on that committee, I realized right away, even though I was new, that it was a very different subcommittee than how others were run. Our athletic director chaired the committee, and it wasn't like a voting subcommittee like others. So I started to just wonder and ask around, and I actually met with the middle school principal at the time, because what occurred to me was that it was a school committee subcommittee, and we are the school committee for the Ipswich School District, but it was a high school reporting committee about athletics. And it seemed, of course, reporting in about athletics to the school committee is a good idea, but it just didn't seem a productive, like a working subcommittee. So I think Dr. Blake and I, we talked about this at the time, and what ended up happening, and this was in 2022, we dissolved that subcommittee And what Dr. Blake designed was an athletic advisory council with our athletic director and I believe our high school principal, but it was very well received, but it was very large. And it was community members, sports leaders, travel sports, YMCA, all-season sports. Am I forgetting anybody? It was really it was really broad.
It was a large group.
Lots of booster parents,
Sorry?
lots of booster parents, is that what,
Yeah,
that-
I think,
like, of many sports represented? So, yeah, it was like in
Yeah.
the 20s
Yeah.
of people.
Um,
It's a lot.
and a few good things came out of that. One was our athletic department in the high school started to survey students at the end of their season, get some feedback on how the season went. Another good thing that came out of that was a presentation by our athletic director about how the athletic fee was spent and kind of where the money goes, and those slides are still on our district website. But since then, that advisory council has kind of, pittered out. I don't know what the best term is. I think the idea was, another good thing that came out but didn't come to fruition this year is to have a sports fair so that parents could come and kind of get an understanding of all the offerings in Ipswich and not just within the schools.
That was actually tentatively scheduled, and information was put out to all of the local sports leads, I'll call them, and we didn't get enough feedback to warrant running that.
Yeah.
We had a date scheduled, we had a time scheduled, and very few of the youth programs responded to as far as an interest in running that, so.
So my perception of what I kind of figured out along the way was that there's athletics all over Ipswich, but as the school committee, as we are the school committee for the district, it's hard to understand and know, well, what's going on at the middle school, because we have an athletic director that schedules our gyms, but they have a whole interscholastic sports program, and there's just not a cohesive athletic policy about how we run things in Ipswich. And I want to just bring up a few things that came up this year kind of along the way, and me being on the budget subcommittee now for the past 3 years, how is the budget run? Like, we have this kind of line for an athletic budget, but we now know where the revolving fees go and how they're applied, but how do we do athletics in Ipswich, and what's needed? What's the transportation budget for athletics? What are the number of teams? Where is the coaching money, the assistant coaching money? Just how are we running athletics? The other thing that I kind of parallel this with is Amada, which is different because it's almost like a boosters program. Amada is a 501c3. But our music department is run by a fine arts director, and it starts in 4th grade, right? So we see here at the high school or at the middle school and the high school, the product of what is started by music teachers, orchestra and band in 4th grade. And we don't have anything at the athletic level that dives down that far, but we have a lot of kids doing athletics that lead up to high school athletics in Ipswich. So I would like to put together a working group, and maybe it's just 4 or 5 meetings, but it's members of the school committee to get our heads together to see how we could write maybe a cohesive policy for athletics in Ipswich and how it relates to our budget, because I think that's within our purview. A policy is within our purview. I have a few things. One idea that came up, especially when the principals were presenting to the FinCom, retention of students. How many students are leaving after middle school to go to other schools based on athletics? And just what our policies are around creating a program. How many teams can we afford? Our teams are getting smaller, there's waivers. And we, along with other districts, we follow the MIAA guidelines, but a lot of it is high school related, not district related, and we have not had a global policy, I don't think, in Ipswich. And I'd like to really take a look at that as a school committee with a working group and see if we can come up with a policy that kind of builds up and has a clear understanding of budget needs going forward as it relates to athletics.
Could this be a group, whether it's, I don't know if it's, you're thinking just the few of us on the school committee, or it could include some coaches or some parents or something like that, so we could get more of an idea of how we can.
Well, yeah, I think defined as a working group of the school committee so that we can actually have a voting body to create a policy. But I think it would work best with community member input. I don't want to, I think if we came together to make a working group, we would set the goals in the beginning. I think with this elementary school building group right now, you've had some outside community members in, am I correct? To kind of.
Speakers?
No, not speakers or community members attend the meeting? I don't know.
People have come for like public comment,
Right.
you know, the same way they would at any meeting, but not, like, we haven't actively invited
that's
people to come or.
Right.
Probably closer on like budget, where we've had members of the strategic planning committee, because we've been partnering. But I think the intention totally makes sense, especially if you're gathering feedback,
Yeah.
feedback. I like where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of like what we've talked about as a group in terms of like the FAQs and the, you know, trying to think about like a communication strategy where, you know, how much can we do now versus how much is going to happen once we get into feasibility and there's a school building committee that's formed, you know what I mean? So I think like in terms of the support that you would need there around how you would have small groups or like what you're talking about, Jenny, how you would reach out to get that input.
Right.
That would be something that you could set up as one of your goals or that kind of.
Since I don't have any kids, I'm not super familiar with the athletic program, and so to have a group, a parent or a guardian or whomever that does have some more insight would educate me on where I would like to go with it.
Well, one thing that is a little bit confusing, even as I think about it, is, like I mentioned, the athletic budget. Like, we have an athletic budget, but then we have IEF, and IEF has funded a lot of our athletic uniforms and different things over the years. And there's money coming and going to different places for athletics, but I don't believe we have a strong understanding of athletics as a policy and where everything is coming from and going from. And I think it would benefit us, I think it would benefit our athletics program to come together as school committee members and decide where we want to go with athletics.
Yeah, I think having members of the school committee make a group for the purpose of making a policy makes a lot of sense. And then I think along the way, getting feedback, you know, two-way feedback and everything, but it's going to be within the purview of the school committee, overarching, but touching upon things within our scope, like budget and other things. So I guess the question is, number one, does everybody support this working group with the goal to create a budget. A budget, listen to me, a policy.
Yes.
Not a budget.
I support the notion. I think I'm hearing two different things, though. I'm hearing a policy piece of what athletics in Ipswich should or can be, but then like the understanding about the comings and goings of the funding. I don't see that would be in a policy necessarily, right? So there's different, maybe it's is part of this a presentation by the athletic director around, to your point, of here's the athletic budget, here's what's supported in the appropriated budget, here's what comes from fees, here's what we rely historically on IEF to provide, right? Because those pieces, and for newer school committee members, you wouldn't know that, to your point, whereas you've been heavily involved in the athletics for
That would be helpful to me.
years, yeah?
Yeah, so it's like a policy and sort of education piece, you know?
Yeah, and to Jenny's point, this working group would probably need the athletic director to come and say, this is the way we do it, and the high school principal, and the middle school principal. And we don't have anything in the elementary schools that answers to anything in the middle school. And I think that's part of where I'd like to see a policy formulated about how we're looking at athletics from, whether it's with phys ed teachers and their communication with community, and communication on up to the middle and then middle to high. But right now, I feel like it's disjointed. But yeah, we would need our athletic director to come talk to us at a working group and all the principals and how do they see it in their buildings in order for us to form a policy. And I did look up some surrounding policies in surrounding districts, and not so much surrounding, some of them are far away. But many of them just have what we have. It's JJIB, just like the kind of boilerplate. We follow the MIAA guidelines. But again, that doesn't talk about an entire district of athletics. It just kind of leaves it to the high school. And then there were a few districts, Amesbury being one of them, that have a more robust athletic policy that talks about coaching and what's expected and required in coaching. And I just think there are a few more robust ones out there. But again, it would be for the entire district to have a cohesive program.
I like your analogy of the feeder program for music. It's maybe 20-ish years ago, but the school committee at the time, it's not that long, maybe it's 10-ish, whatever, years ago, school committee came together to say, we want to heavily invest in the arts in our music program, and like, look at where that is now, and it was representative of the town wanting to advance that program. I like the idea of that from an athletic perspective, right? Like, how do we really make step change? Hamilton Wenham had done something similar for their athletic program, and it was, how do they create better support? How do they create the feeder programs? Where do we need funding? Where do we need additional support? And did it more directionally and strategically to get support overall from the town to do that? And they, I don't know where they are now, but at the time, like, really over the course of 4 years, went from programs that were really struggling to some of the most competitive because they had that strategic support. So I like where you're going with this, and I think it's certainly helpful for us to,
Does Hamilton?
from that perspective, set the direction.
But that was a school committee thing?
Yeah, they came together, exactly what you described, what we did with our music program. Their athletic programs were really struggling, and they came together with the intention of, how do we grow our programs over the long term? A part of it was the feeder. It was a small aspect of funding, but not a significant part. Like, they didn't quadruple their funding, but it was more the focus and the intention of growing those programs.
So just crazy merging of worlds. The high school council has been talking about this very topic for the past 2 meetings. School council meeting on Monday. I don't know if Mr. Mitchell has brought it up to you, but he actually wanted to revisit this conversation because parents have been coming to school council, students have been reporting to school council that there are seeing a disconnect. Students are leaving the district because of athletics. Music analogy was made there too. And while there is the Ipswich Athletic Association, it doesn't have the connection with the schools that an athletic subcommittee or athletic committee from the schools would have, just because it's not as connected. But I think it's important, and parents who were there were passionate about it and wanted it to happen. And this is a topic that's come up again and again, just from different funding sources. I mean, you mentioned Hamilton Wenham. Hamilton Wenham spends $250,000 more than us for athletics. Our athletic fee has not been adjusted in, I mean, I don't know how long. And so costs are going up, athletics are going up, and we have to look at it and say, you know, where do we want to be, where do we want our school to be, school district to be in terms of athletics? And I think it's really important to have a subcommittee to address these concerns and the longevity of athletic programs.
Thank you.
I like a lot of the ideas of this, and I think like the things that resonated with me were things like how many teams can we afford? I mean, I think we've had that question before. You know, what's important to us, and those sort of like bigger picture priority things. And I don't disagree that there's a lot that needs to be worked out. I think the liaison with IEF is tricky, and trying to get that a little bit more ironed out would be great, because we appreciate their support, but we don't want to rely on it. So if it was sort of delineated a little bit better. And I do think there's work to be done, sort of communication between the schools. I guess the thing that's hanging me up is, I guess, music's part of the school day and athletics is extracurricular. So that's why it seems a little bit out of our lane, but some of it does and some of it doesn't. So that's just what I'm thinking about. So, and we'd need to really limit it to like school sports, right? So, I mean, I think there's still a big piece of the community, you know, travel sports and all that would need to happen either at the same time or in alignment with this. Like, I don't think a working group could, or a policy could fix athletics in Ipswich. I think it could do a piece, but then I think there's going to still need to be a robust community aspect.
Yeah, it's
to
not
it.
going to fix everything, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, a policy kind of, it can be aspirational, like think about
Yeah.
the sustainability policy, right? And like within that, we're like, I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but like an objective is to partner with local farms, you know, and they're not under the school, but that's a goal. So there can be, you know, it's all how you word it. So I think, yes, it definitely needs to stay within the scope of the school committee, but it's you know, it's overarching. And then how it actually happens would be, you know.
Well, is there any overlay, oh, sorry, go ahead. Is there overlay between, like, the PE goals, like what you were saying, for elementary level? Or, I don't know where, like, how that dips into, it's not the same as extracurricular activities, but like, there are standards that we need to be covered within the school day, right?
Yeah.
Relate to.
I think a lot of
Third
them do
PE,
revolve
whatever.
around intro to,
Right, but I think there could be
Sports.
definitely a better effort made to introduce kids to a lot of different athletic opportunities. Like I know in middle school, like we never played tennis. Like I know middle school was kind of distorted by COVID, but introduce kids to different sports, you know, throughout their career. Tennis, like try golf earlier, like try to get them involved. Cross country, I know we do the mile run, but that's kind of it. Just try to, you know, get kids interested in sports earlier than their freshman year of high school, because I mean, as we've seen with the football team and kind of some of the lacrosse team, their new members, and even the soccer team, a lot of these other towns we're competing against in the Cape Ann League have this pipeline of students who go into athletics throughout their, you know, school journey, and it's tough to go against that. And they're also really involved and they love it. And it would be great if Ipswich had the same process or more of a streamlined flow of athletes.
yeah. I don't think a lot of it is exposure. Like my daughter started volleyball in 8th grade, end of 8th grade. It's like a whole world I didn't even know existed that, you know, if we'd been introduced to it earlier, I mean, I knew it was a sport, obviously, but I didn't realize there was like there's a whole world out there of volleyball families, and there's lots of other sports that, yeah, if kids are just, so maybe like having a sports fair and exposure more in the younger grades.
And to have it, the intent isn't to not work alongside, part of our school committee policy shouldn't be that there's travel sports and these are the areas. But because it seems right now that there's no continuity in becoming an athlete, arriving at the high school, you're kind of relying on all your travel soccer experience or your travel, like there's just not a, a clear path. And you're arriving at the high school and, okay, this is the high school sports, and there's just, and then your dad was your coach since you've been 6 years old. And I just think that there's not a clear athletic policy on the way Ipswich does athletics. And part of the way we do athletics is we rely on the community volunteers. But within the schools, I think we as a school committee can come up with just a vision of what we want, of what we can afford, and how to work alongside the community to create a policy so that we have a clear vision in the form of a policy on where we're going.
I agree, and I know we're in the Cape Ann League. Right. And, it'd be interesting to, maybe you already looked this up, but what their practice is, like what their policy is, because if that's the level that we are competing against, we want to give our kids the best chance we can to compete at that same level, So if there is this policy, this pipeline of athletes and skill that they've been taking for a few years prior to high school, and we don't have that, that must be probably frustrating for a student athlete to then go against somebody who has been in that school program for 4 years prior to that. So I think it'd be interesting to see what the other Cape Ann leagues have.
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like everybody's generally in agreement of creating this working group.
Yeah.
Sounds like Jen wants to be on it.
Like that.
Is there anybody else who is?
Would we be forming this like right away?
Who's
or
your
what do you-
intention to form it
I think
right
so.
away?
I think we should get started.
Now that budget's hopefully.
I would suggest having at least one student captain on the team. Put that out to the high school. I don't know I know I serve as the student rep for this, but if a student captain athlete would be on there, I think that would be really helpful.
Would it be three or less, obviously, on a school committee? But then it could be like guests of the working group or something like that. We would just have them come. They wouldn't be voting members of said working group or
Right,
whatever.
like
Like if you want to come.
But
Well-
we would invite them and say, like, if you're able to come, we would love to have your expertise on X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So we
Parents
can
and
talk about.
coaches and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Not more
But
than
not,
3
like,
school committee
officially,
members.
But not
Yeah.
more than 3.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
yeah.
But I'm saying, like, he's like a captain
Yes.
or something.
Yeah.
Reach out to them and,
Right,
having a meeting, can you come, like, to pick your brain about
right, yep.
Imagine the athletic director. Can he come to this, or is this like under?
I imagine that if we determine who's on our working group, we're going to get together and we're going to create goals and what we need as far as community input. I don't think it's a matter of can he come. I think we're going to need his input and explanation for a lot of it and ideas and. Yeah, but I think probably the first step, I would imagine, is let's look at other Cal policies and where we want to go and things like that, yeah.
All right, so we got Jen. Anybody else?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, so Jenny
Unless
and
somebody else,
Sasha?
if anybody else is, for sure they
I
want to
was
do it.
going to say Matt's not here. I
I
don't know.
think Matt was a little interested.
He was interested?
I think so.
Well, then he can,
But I don't want to speak for him, but.
no, that's fine. And then if he isn't able to, then
Okay.
I can.
I'm thinking if you have elementary, which is, I know, going to get a little heavy as you're putting together your
that's fine.
documents, but if you feel strongly, then you guys can.
No, that's,
Battle it out.
I'm here to help.
Okay.
If
All right.
Matt's interested, then absolutely.
And these might get all rejiggered in July anyways, just FYI, right? I mean,
Well,
we have the opportunity to shuffle
we have
things around
opportunity, but I
in
mean,
the
if
summer.
they're making headway, then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
so-
I think this group would stay, but probably, because they're just
Yeah,
getting
right,
formed.
right, everything will move around. Okay, so Jen, Sasha, and Matt. All right,
Check with Matt.
potentially
Hopefully,
Matt.
Matt.
Somebody will ask Matt. Matt, if you're watching, you just got on a
vote
new
Matt
working
in.
group. So, great. Keep us posted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, MASC potential workshop. So last summer, or like we referenced earlier, I think in 2023, we did one of these workshops. And then I think last summer, we talked about, hey, that was great, we should do another one, and then we never did. And then Haley brought it up that we totally should. So here we are. Did everybody look at the list? Okay. Do you want to go around and just kind of say which ones you're interested in, then we can see what the common theme is? I think last time we did 2 from the list. They were able to cover 2 in a workshop.
We had also
Depends what
talked
else we want
about-
to do at the workshop.
What?
Depends what else we want to do. Wait, like a
Like with
summer
MASC
retreat?
coming in and like doing a
Oh,
training.
I don't remember.
I think they covered 2, because I think it was the superintendent Val, and then like, it was like open
Roles.
meeting law and like just
Roles and
everything.
responsibilities,
Yes,
didn't
yeah,
they?
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
the general
Right.
stuff, yeah.
It was not at the retreat that we did it. because-
No.
No.
You're-
Okay.
Yeah, I know,
It
I was wrong.
It was
Yeah.
the fall or whatever, because I saw when I went to the MASC conference in November of 2003, I saw the woman who had come to us.
Yeah.
And so that was great. Yes, so 2 things. I think I could always use, personally, more help, and I know there's always help here too. But the school finance is good, and what was the other one? Parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order. I thought those would be,
Okay.
yeah.
Jen, do you have some faves?
Where's the budget one?
It's called finance. School
Yes.
finances.
School
Okay.
finance. And I also like special education, but I feel like, I think I'm really excited about Eric Oxford and everything he's doing, but it wouldn't be bad to hear special education from MASC.
Those were mine, second,
Oh, okay.
if you want to skip. But I'm,
Haley?
School finance, for sure. I think roles and responsibilities was I mean, a lot of this for me is still new, but I've heard this in many meetings that came up tonight too, is sort of like, what's within our purview, and like, what should we be doing? When do we kind of yield and, all of that. So roles and responsibilities is another one.
Is it finance and special education also?
Okay.
I think also people should, pay attention to those lunch and learns, because sometimes they have good lunch and learns on like Friday afternoons about some of these things too. So I
was
haven't
gonna
gone to one in a while, but I know I did when I was a newer member, and they're pretty good.
I was going to say too, that if there's something that just a couple of people want to do, I would think that as opposed to just having like a whole group kind of, we could do something on a smaller scale if we're not in a quorum, or if we are and it pertains to a subcommittee or a working group, something like that, we could probably, sounds like everybody's kind of in agreement. But if there were outliers.
Yeah, I had finance for sure. I also had teamwork, superintendent evaluation, but I think the ones that got the most votes are finance and special education. Yeah, and sorry, Haley, I think the rest of us did that other one, but I'm wondering if we can look up if there was the roles and responsibilities one we had done.
Well, that's the one you guys did.
But
Oh,
I bet we
sorry.
could, we probably have the slide deck in our
Yeah,
drive
it's in
somewhere. Or
there.
you could probably reach out to the field rep and get the slide. I mean, I know it's not going to be as good, but
It's,
I'm
yeah,
sure
I mean, that's
I'm
where I
sure they
found.
would give you lots of information if you asked for it.
Yeah, and then, like you said, there's a lot of the recordings, like they had one last week about community engagement that I listened in on. Yeah, we won't leave you hanging. We'll get you get you some
Is
info
there
there
any,
too.
is there anything, not seeing in here related to like goal setting and vision and like those kinds of things? Because I feel like I actually have emailed them quite a few times as follow-up when I did my charting for the course training to understand like how those documents kind of, like the budget document is a values document, and how does it align with our vision? And then how does it align with the goals that we've set for ourselves and the superintendent's goals and then therefore the assessment? I feel like a lot of that gets baked in together, but it's probably parsed out separately here, but I don't know if there's a way to ask them to do something tailored for us.
That in roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
But we could ask if they could touch upon that. How do we, like, who booked it last time? Did you book it?
I
too? Or
booked
you
it, but I don't, doesn't have to be me. I don't mind
Do it.
doing it, yeah.
Okay. So I'll ask about finance, special education. I'll see if they have any like mini goals situation they can give us. Okay. And then we get dates from them first. Do we give them dates? How you do it?
I think the last one that we did was, that I recall doing was during a retreat. Wasn't it during our summer retreat?
No, it was in the,
It was in the fall, it was maybe September, October of 2023,
We
I
picked,
think.
was it a,
like a Monday.
was it?
We did it during the week, but I think we did it as a workshop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was not during our meeting.
It was not during the meeting, like, it was
before our
here, but we didn't do it as part of the formal meeting because it was just a learning. We didn't vote on anything, so
No
we just called it a
deliberation
workshop.
or,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, why don't I'll just reach out to them and see if they can give us some dates and then I'll come back to this group. Okay.
I guess,
I
what
think-
are we looking for in terms of a time frame, though? Are we looking between now and the end of the school year? Are we looking between now and summer or the fall? I think that'll be important to pinpoint at least that much.
I don't think, for me, I don't think it needs to be before the end of the school year. But, I mean, one of the things is budget. So, we're good for now. So, till next month. I'm good not talking about it.
Haley, I did find, they did a lunch series on goal setting in June 2023, but the recording's up,
Oh, great, okay.
I'll forward you the link. I mean, I don't know. Sure.
Okay, so when are we looking? Summer? Fall?
Summer.
When do you want to do it?
No,
When do people want to do it? I'll do it
I'm gonna send
whenever.
it to you first to make sure the link works.
Like, come in at
How long is like an hour?
Hours.
A couple hours, okay. I was gonna say, could it be like a retreat
Yeah.
agenda
Oh,
item?
I feel like we got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think it could be, I mean, I'm for soon after school begins, or like in the, early fall. It might be tough coming in the summer.
Okay, so you want to wait till
We
fall.
usually have there's usually a few other things that we're already coming in for.
Do you have a preference?
Just send this to you and make sure the link works.
Fall? Like fall? Okay, I mean, I wonder if it's even something we need to reach out at this point then. I can still ask. I'm hearing fall. Anybody?
Trying to think of, what was last fall like, what was last spring? What's the quietest time for us to try to fit it in? I don't remember that
September.
well back, so.
The quietest time, I think, is early fall before we start budgets and
September, October.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Full process.
us administratively to get the doors open and
Yeah. So that's my only consideration, is find the time that we know is going to be quietest.
Okay. All right, well, I'll just generally reach out and say we're interested come the fall and probably don't need to get on the books yet. Okay. Any other
I got it. This is their
questions about
account.
that? All right, on to the warrant review. So, like I had communicated, if we have like any questions or things we need to get confirmation on, we can talk about that, but really the purpose is let's just figure out what we're voting on and then actually vote at our next meeting. So let me just pull it up. And I also looked at what we voted on last year, so we have some ideas there. Okay. So, Article 1, we typically vote on that. Does anybody not want to vote on that? Okay. Article 2, obviously, I don't think we said Radham last year, but I don't think we actually stood up and presented our position, but we can,
It depends if it's something, if there's a, I think we did.
on that's the appointment of a finance committee member.
Yes.
Article 2, oh, okay.
But yeah, I think if there's we might have to get up and say
Okay.
something. If there's like someone, maybe there's a couple different suggestions from the floor, we might have to
Okay. Well,
huddle and support one if we so choose.
yeah, okay, so we'll take a position, but we know we'll have to rat them because we don't know who it is yet. All right, number 3, we typically vote on. Number 4, we definitely vote on.
Yes, please.
5, 6 also, and 7. And 8. All right.
It's town stabilization, right? Yeah.
You're suggesting we do vote on 8?
I think, well,
Think
we
so.
typically opine on the town budgets, but unless we don't want to, we don't have to.
Fine with that.
Does the select board vote on our appropriation?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, number 9. New, it wasn't on last year, the opioid funding.
I think we should vote on that.
We should, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that,
We're talking about speakers in 2 weeks, because I won't be
Yeah.
here, which is fine, but just don't assign me all the things, please.
I'm assigning you all the hard
And
ones.
if we want to discuss it now, I'm open to that. I come back.
All right, number 10.
Too close.
This one, it wasn't on last year. The general budget.
If we're voting on 8, I think we'd vote on 10.
I agree.
right?
Sorry, I was pointing to the wrong ones.
4, 5, 6.
It's all right, we'll do it next.
All right. 11. Sasha, you had asked a question about this to the town manager, and this would impact school property, so it does have to do with the schools. So imagine we'll take a position. Okay. 12. We typically vote on that, as we should. 13, capital plan, yes. All right, 14 is borrowing for water treatment plant replacement. So I looked back, and last year, we did not take positions on any water department upgrades.
I suggest we do from a strategic planning
That's what I was
perspective.
thinking. Yeah,
Because this
Okay.
is a big, it's a big,
It's a big deal, and
it's a big ticket item, and it's one of the big 8 on the strategic plan, so.
That we've been talking about.
doesn't it also affect the water quality in our school?
yeah. I know, I don't know why we didn't do it
Good
last
point.
year.
Critical factor.
Yeah.
I'll drink water, yeah.
All right, so we will take a position on 14. 15 is a fire truck.
I mean, I would,
Is that on the, that's on the plan?
That's on the plan,
No.
yes, I believe it is, I believe it is on this, it is.
So by going by the reason for the water treatment plan, does it make sense that we vote on it?
well, it also feels
think
like
so.
safety, right? I mean, there's a safety issue there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We will-
But not everything.
We care about it all.
We're taking a position on the fire truck. All right, 16, Noresco, we have taken a position in the past. Take a position, okay. 17, floodplain.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't,
Think so either. So that's the first one we're not taking a position on, right?
that's my thought.
Yep, I agree. Does anybody feel they want to take a position on floodplain as a school committee member? Okay.
I'm fine.
I'll just maybe say, it'd be good for us to have an actual, like, rubric or something of what we do and don't. Like, I think these are all fine. This feels like a very different conversation than we had last year and the year before, maybe not the year before, whatever it was. I feel like there would just be better guidance for us to,
Yeah.
even if we're like, we're an elected body, we should own every single one. I mean, that's a simple way, I don't know if we all agree with that. Or to be like, only if it directly is the school, we should have a better way to decide.
Yeah.
We don't have to decide, we don't have to do that tonight, just an observation, maybe that goes to operations, subcommittee, come with something to determine here. I don't need to slow us down, I'm just noticing that this feels a little,
Right. Right.
But I guess we're not
Sure.
the final vote of what's gonna happen.
yeah,
You know, it's just, you know, that they, you
Yeah.
know, the citizens can see where we would as a school committee. So, but yes,
I agree. And it would be nice to have that. I think part of the reason I wanted to do this as a new school committee member, I came to the meeting like having deeply researched everything and then come to find out we didn't vote on everything. And I was like, oh, so, but yeah.
I just want it to be
if we could just-
arbitrary.
Yeah, then we wouldn't even have to pick
right.
and
But we
choose
have been doing
individually.
a lot of discussion with this strategic planning.
Yeah.
But you're right, I think moving forward, it's
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is,
not like at our whim, like there's reasons
Yeah.
why we're saying X, Y, and Z.
right, my personal opinion is, we're elected by the town, we should weigh on every single one.
Right.
But that's just
Right.
me, so we should
Right.
have a formal opinion from
Right.
this body.
But then some of them we don't know anything about, so we would need to go to
Right.
select board meetings.
No, but that's what I'm
or-
saying, is
yeah, or
we
get
should have an
informed on
informed
them if
opinion
we're
as an
gonna-
elected body,
right, yeah.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
But you're right,
But
we
then we
should be
would
clear on
need
that
to-
ahead of time, not tonight, to make sure that everyone, when we get to floodplain, everyone feels
Someone-
educated in it.
Someone's
Yeah.
going to the select board meeting and reporting, or whatever,
Or
reporting
just in
back on
general, like
what.
each of us individually. Yes, but it would be good for us to understand, to know that that's the expectation,
Mm-hmm.
yes. All
mean,
right,
we
so
were
for
like-
another time.
Yeah, we were elected as the school committee as opposed to like the select board who have those things. But anyway, right, conversation for another time, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I put it in my notes. I heard you. This might be a real stretch on the zoning for floodplain, but I feel like there was something you brought up earlier in the year related to the emergency plan, that where you guys had to do something, you had to shift something related to flooding, potential flooding. or
Buses can't get to the neck because it floods?
No,
Something
I
like
don't
that,
know,
or no?
something, you're looking.
Yeah,
like you're- I don't know that there would be anything related to zoning that it would be connected to that. This, like I said, that's why I prefaced it by saying this might be a stretch, but something occurred to me that I felt like there was something in the safety
was
plan that
something
you had
early
to
on.
address.
The gardening, the landscape.
No, it had to do with emergency management. There was something there. It's not,
Maybe, I don't know if we go back to, if there would
Yeah.
be anything that, just again, being educated around whatever those zones are, if it's applicable to,
makes a difference.
yeah, like if we had to evacuate to, I felt like it was something related to that, or like if we had to evacuate to, I don't know. Again, might be a stretch. I'm not formulating a question, but,
Sounds familiar.
yeah, wasn't there?
It was one of the, it had to do with one of the school buildings, I thought, and the emergency generator.
So it doesn't pertain to this. Okay.
All right, next, 3A. So we had taken a position in the past. Position again. On that.
Where are we? Oh.
We're getting the updates like for Noresco from you. 3A, I'm like, oh shoot, we're voting next week. Like, we haven't gotten an update, and I'm looking at you because you are familiar with that group. Do you,
So last year we had Sarah Player come,
yeah,
if you remember.
so maybe I could see if we could get somebody to come next week,
If
which
peop-
is.
Yeah, I
too
mean, if
bad
people,
didn't
I think that should be part of this discussion, is what do people need
Yeah.
in general, on any article, to feel like you need to take an informed vote.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to have, when possible, a, let's say, a pro and a con, like a person who is for it, person who is opposed. I just think in the town overall, I think that would be such a great thing, is if there was a forum prior to town meeting where it was just like a pro and con forum, and you had people that are for it or not, just so you can kind of figure out where you stand, because someone's going to say this, someone's going to say that. So if it's possible, when we have somebody talking about 3A or whatever, to have the pro 3A and also a opposition for any topic. That way we can kind of get the idea from both.
I think that could be risky with, I think with 3A, for instance, it's being presented by the planning board. I think we need to go to the presenters or the experts, so whether that's the planning board or in this case, the 3A task force.
I don't know how you'd find enough, who would the opposition
Right.
be?
Well, I don't
Like,
know.
who would we,
Right.
there's not a
Like an official.
spokesperson
right.
for the opposition, or unless, maybe there would be, maybe there, in some cases, there would be.
Right,
I think it's a good point, but I almost think that's what town meeting is for,
right.
right?
It,
Like,
no, that's true.
this is the article,
But
and
if we're,
people,
if we're gonna vote on something prior to that.
Yeah.
But I just, in general,
I do find
totally
it,
not what we're talking about.
yeah, I do find it really useful to listen to either the Finance Committee warrant hearing and/or the Select Board warrant hearing, because they sometimes just ask really thoughtful questions and are hearing sort of both sides of the issue, so I haven't done that. I don't think they've happened yet.
No.
But those are,
Select board
I
can
know
vote
it's like more hours of your time, but it is, I do find those useful.
The planning board, I think the 3A hearing is, the planning board's 3A hearings, what, the 8th of April? It's coming up. It's going to be before we meet again. So that would be a good thing to attend or watch, or
That's a good
you have
point.
questions then.
Yeah.
We also, ahead of Sarah's presentation, we were allowed to submit questions, so maybe we just ask as sort of like an always question is, what opposition are you getting on this? Like, what feedback are you getting that is not in support, so they can give that kind of directly,
Right.
whoever's presenting.
Yeah, but that's hard to ask someone who's in support of something, with, you know. But I think if we bring the questions to the hearing,
Yeah, but I think that's where
That's a good option.
transparency is required, right? I mean, we would
I
have to
hope
do
so.
the same, right, you would
Right.
hope so, but
Sarah, I do remember, Sarah did go through that last year in her 3A presentation. She said, here's concerns that we've heard. She did share the committee's perspective, but she did go through those. I thought that was helpful too.
I did, yeah.
I don't think 3A is different this year, just some things have happened with the state and lawsuits and things, but I don't think, what's being brought before the voters, I think, is the same versus like Noresco is it's, I mean,
right.
it's the same, it's just whittled some things off, so it's not dramatically different, but so, it's up to whatever you guys think.
But yes, we should vote.
Okay, and I'll see if we can get anybody to come and, yeah, I guess I'm just looking for general updates, but I will watch the hearings coming up. Okay. So 19 and, so confused, was there a 21 that got slashed? Because now it's only goes up to 19 and 20, but anyways. 19 is a citizen's petition. Last year, we took no position on any of the citizen petitions. I don't know that we need to take a position on number 19.
I wonder if the other boards will.
Hmm?
I wonder if the other boards will
You want to,
take a position. We could wait and see what the other boards do.
okay.
I don't know. There's not much meat to this one, so I'm not really sure what. There's not a lot of information. Short.
So do you want to leave that as a maybe?
I think it could be a maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll get the dates and let everybody know when all those hearings are happening so we can watch. Right. And then 20.
I kind of feel like we should take a position on this. It's very relevant to us.
I'm sorry?
I kind of feel like we should take a position on this.
Does have Ipswich schools in the title.
This would
Yeah.
fall within that rubric.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think not taking a position sends a message. I don't know. But that's,
I did
petitioner just about some follow-up questions, and I know he had reached out to the town moderator just to go over options. So I haven't heard anything else, no updates. But and to take a position on that. So it sounds like we.
Do other people agree with that? I'm the only one that
Yes,
said anything.
100%,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay. That's okay, I just,
So we're just not taking a position on.
floodplains.
Good for us.
Right. So I'm gonna take a bathroom break at 17. I'll be like, sorry, bye. All right. So
From the stage.
Careful what you wish for.
Exit stage right.
All right. And so the action items will be to see if we can get some more information about 3A, and I will send out the dates for the upcoming hearings so we can all watch and be prepared.
Is there anything else on here that we need more information on that we should request, or, yeah, or anything else we should request?
That's my next question. Anybody? Anything else?
Jenny, on that last page
I had a
are the
small one on
ballot
Oresco, but I can talk
questions,
to Carl
the
directly.
way they're worded.
Oh, thank you. What?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The ballot questions are worded
Oh,
on that
yeah,
last
yeah.
page.
Okay, I
If
see
you
it.
want to see
That is
what
the
they
one
look
I'll
like.
Yeah.
And Sasha, what did you say? I'm
No, I had a small one on Noresco, but I can either ask Carl about it or I can bring it up at Bean Counting on Saturday.
Do you want to see if I know from climate resiliency?
Are we deciding
Or no?
do we know which boards bring what type of food or snack? I feel like this
Yeah,
is
maybe
something
I'll
that should have been discussed a long time ago. Are we in charge of muffins?
I feel like,
As long as there's beans.
There are usually like pastries provided, BYO coffee.
I think it's a
The
FinCom
town,
meeting.
or FinCom, yeah, I don't know.
Either Select Board or FinCom usually have
I
some
remember I think I
dunks.
baked a lot.
There's
and I was like,
donuts
there
and
are
things.
some here.
Oh.
I'll hold off.
All right.
I mean, we love your
Really want
muffins, so, we love your muffins, so if you want to make them, I'll have one.
Fruits and chocolates.
Any other questions about the articles?
John can make you a pen.
Can we, maybe Budget Subcommittee can touch base after the meeting about speakers, because I'm not going to be here next week, so we
Okay.
can, if,
So, do you have to be on speakerphone when we do the votes, so you can be here for like the discussions and stuff?
I just, no, I don't think,
Like, do you have to be present?
But you don't have to be.
it'd be like on speakerphone, or we'd do it
or-
a hybrid meeting?
Hybrid you in.
Because then you probably have to be here to hear like the discussions and the.
Are you traveling out of town?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll probably be in the car, so,
Let me know. You don't have to,
Okay.
but if you
Yeah,
want to,
if you
then.
want, we can
yeah.
legally bring you into the meeting.
okay, we'll see.
I'm just wondering, can you vote if you're not?
Yeah, it's just like a
even if you're
hybrid
not
meeting.
Present for the
I'm sorry.
discussions?
Well, yeah, but she could.
Oh, I thought you meant
Just
for
like
what
if you show
speaker
up-
assignments.
Oh, no, no.
No, not like,
Present to hear like.
no, but virtually present. She
You
like,
can be virtual present.
if she wants to.
I don't, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know what the.
Let's talk about it
Robert's
offline.
rules.
You know, because we can.
Yeah,
we're
no,
back to
we'll all
remote
be above
meetings.
board if I attend.
Okay.
It will be a
Oh,
hybrid.
perfect.
All right, is there new business?
Well,
This is not. See if we can.
Summer retreat, has that been discussed?
thank
Thought
you.
about a date
Date?
or
Yeah.
any
summer
tentative?
retreat and
I don't know,
location.
just, sometimes it
Let's go back to
sneaks
that.
up on you.
Beautiful.
Or at least like,
Send me, last year we did it in July.
Huh?
Send me absolute no dates.
Okay.
Start with that. Everybody send me absolute dates you cannot do, and I will make a grid and then
In
come up with
July.
some options in July.
Yeah.
like
Okay.
Monday through Thursday from
Yeah. Okay.
to 9.
This is it was a weekday
It's like a
evening, right?
3 hours in the evening, like a 5 to 9, 5 to 8.
Where did we have
I'm
it 2
on
years ago?
vacation
Was it
the last,
Turkey Hill? No,
Turner Hill.
Turner Hill. That's ice cream.
I'm vacation from the 22nd.
We'll send an email. I'll
send
make
it
a
out.
grid. Okay.
And then I know the other thing that will be on the agenda at some point, it's very exciting for me, is to talk about the school events and the proms and the graduations and who's going to be assigned to what.
Okay, we can do that next.
Ipswich High School senior
Okay.
prom.
I already know what I want.
Okay.
Let me know when we start.
Okay.
I want to hear.
You're gonna go to,
Oh my gosh, the senior prom was so much fun. I want to do that.
Okay, so we'll do upcoming
there.
events.
So like in the movies where you're like an official chaperone, like kids need to stand farther apart.
Yeah, I know. Hey, what do they put something
No,
in?
that's
Great.
middle school dance.
Good?
Yes.
New business? All right, consent agenda. Move the Ipswich School Committee to accept meeting minutes from March 20th, 2025, a check in the amount of $3,000 from the Ipswich Education Foundation for the high school robotics team to be deposited into the high school gift account, and a check in the amount of $1,000 to be from the Institution for Savings for the senior class to be deposited into the high school student activity account, and a check in the amount of $1,090.80 from Friends of Ipswich Elementary School's Fries for intervention materials for the Winthrop School kindergarten classes to be deposited into the Winthrop gift account.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jenny, second by Jen. Further discussion? All in favor? Passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Jenny, second by Jen. All in favor? Got out 2 minutes early.
That might have been the fastest you've ever read.